We live in a world obsessed with measuring height, weight, wealth, status, followers, likes, achievements. And somewhere along the way, we began measuring ourselves too. Not in wonder, but in judgment. Not in self-inquiry, but in comparison. As though your life was a product on a shelf, sitting beside another, waiting to be chosen. Comparison is the thief of your essence. It does not enter loudly, nor does it announce its arrival. It creeps in quietly, through small glances and subtle thoughts. You see someone walk by with more confidence than you feel. You hear another speak with a clarity you wish you possessed. You witness success that seems effortless, while your own efforts feel unnoticed and heavy. And before you realize it, a part of you begins to question your own worth, not because something within you is broken, but because your attention has drifted away from your own center. This is how comparison works. It pulls you away from yourself and places your awareness into a realm of illusion. It convinces you that there is some universal standard you must reach, some invisible ladder you must climb. But what it never tells you is that the ladder itself is made up. It does not exist. There is no correct version of you hidden in the shadow of another person's life. Every individual you encounter is shaped by 1,000 unseen forces, just as you are. Their thoughts, upbringing, fears, choices, timing, all of it collides to form who they are in this moment. To compare your journey to theirs is to ignore the sacred complexity of your own path. It is to take your unique story and measure it with someone else's ruler. And no ruler, no matter how finely marked, can ever measure the shape of a soul. You were not born to replicate another. You were born to embody something original, something that cannot be found in anyone else. The moment you try to conform your existence to someone else's mold, you begin to chip away at your essence. You silence your own voice to echo another's. You abandon your rhythm to follow another's pace, and in doing so, you become a stranger to yourself. There is a kind of violence in comparison, though it wears the mask of motivation. It whispers that you could be better if only you were more like them. It does not inspire growth. It breeds self-doubt. It convinces you that your natural state is not enough, that you must sculpt yourself into a different form in order to be worthy of love, respect, or peace. But peace does not come from comparison. It comes from alignment, from living in such a way that your actions match your inner truth. And to know your truth, you must return to yourself. You must listen not to the noise of the world, but to the quiet of your own being. You must learn the contours of your thoughts, the music of your emotions, the subtle voice that speaks in moments of stillness. This is not easy. The mind loves to judge. It loves to evaluate and categorize. But you are not a number. You are not a score to be improved or a chart to be analyzed. You are a living mystery, unfolding in real time. No one can predict the full shape of your becoming, not even you. When you let go of comparison, something extraordinary happens. You begin to see clearly. You see that others are not ahead or behind you, they are simply elsewhere on their own path. Their light does not diminish yours. Their strength does not highlight your weakness. In fact, what you admire in others is often a reflection of what you've yet to notice within yourself. The more you compare, the more you dilute your own power. But the more you turn inward, the more that power returns. You find clarity not through competition, but through authenticity. You don't need to win. You need only to be fully, presently, unapologetically. Comparison is seductive because it offers a simple answer to a complex question. Am I enough? But the truth is, no comparison can answer that. The only one who can is you. And that answer comes not from proving, not from chasing, but from remembering. Remembering that you are not here to impress, imitate, or outperform. You are here to express something only you can express. So do not be distracted by the paths of others. Do not measure your worth by the reflection in someone else's mirror. You are not a replica. You are not a shadow. You are not a lesser version of someone else's dream. You are a flame of your own kind. Let it burn as it was always meant to, wildly, freely, and entirely your own. Everyone is dancing to a different rhythm. Life is not a race with a single finish line, nor a song with a single beat. It is a vast, ever-changing orchestra where each individual moves according to a timing that is uniquely their own. And yet, we often forget this truth. We look around and assume there is a pace we must keep, a melody we must follow, and that if we are not moving in step with others, we must somehow be falling behind. But this is a misunderstanding of life's nature. No two lives are meant to unfold the same way. The rhythm you move to, your decisions, your timing, your growth is not supposed to mirror anyone else's. Your tempo may be slower, more deliberate. Someone else's may be fast and bold. But one is not better than the other. They are simply different movements in the same vast dance. There is great wisdom in recognizing this. When you understand that each person is dancing to a rhythm of their own, you begin to release the pressure to conform. You stop forcing yourself to match steps with those around you. You stop questioning your path just because it doesn't resemble the one someone else is on. And in that release, something powerful begins to happen. You begin to hear your own rhythm again. The rhythm of your life is not random. It is shaped by countless factors: your inner world, your history, your experiences, your values. It is shaped by how deeply you listen, how truthfully you move, how patiently you trust. It does not rush to meet another's expectations. It waits for alignment. And that waiting is not stagnation. It is preparation. It is allowing your own roots to sink deep so that when you rise whole. But when you forget this, you start to move out of sync with yourself. You mimic the footsteps of those near you, even when those steps don't feel right. You rush because others are rushing. You slow down because others seem unsure. You second-guess your own instincts because someone else made a different choice. And in that mimicking, you begin to lose your connection with your own rhythm. This is where much of our suffering begins, not in the actual events of our lives, but in our resistance to their timing. We tell ourselves we should be somewhere else by now. We should have achieved more, done more, become more. But should according to what? According to whom? The truth is, there is no universal script. There is no standard choreography for this dance of life. Each person is improvising, even if they appear certain. No one has the full music. Everyone is simply doing their best to move with what they hear inside. When you understand this, you begin to look at others differently. Their success no longer threatens you. Their stillness no longer confuses you. Their momentum no longer pressures you. You can celebrate their rhythm without needing to match it. You can observe their dance and still remain devoted to your own. Because you know now that being true to yourself sometimes means stepping aside from the crowd and listening again to what only you can hear. Some people bloom early. Some people bloom late. Some never bloom in the ways the world expects, but in their quiet, they grow in unseen but profound ways. None of it is wrong. It is only different, and different is not a failure. It is the natural expression of diversity in this strange and beautiful human experience. So, if you find yourself moving at a different pace, let that be okay. Let it be more than okay. Let it be sacred. Let it be yours. Because trying to speed up your rhythm to match someone else's tempo only leads to disconnection. You become a stranger to your own breath, your own sense of purpose. You miss the joy of your own dance. Your rhythm may not always make sense to others. It may not even make sense to you at times. But trust it. It is not random. It is not broken. It is speaking in a language older than thought, deeper than logic. It is the sound of your becoming. So keep dancing, even if no one else can hear your music. It was never meant for them. It was always meant for you. The illusion of better is shaped by ego. It is the quiet voice that says, "This isn't enough," even when everything around you is calm, whole, and real. It is the invisible lens that filters the world, making the grass always seem greener somewhere else, the moment just ahead feel more valuable than the one you're in, and the person across from you seem more complete than you believe yourself to be. Ego is not the loud, arrogant self it's often mistaken for. It is much more subtle. It's the internal measuring device constantly comparing, constantly reaching, constantly hungry. It whispers that fulfillment lies just out of reach, that happiness is a place to get to, that success is something to chase, that who you are now is merely a stepping stone to something more important, something better. But what is better, really? And according to what? According to whom? The ego never answers clearly. It moves the goalposts every time you get close. If you have peace, it tells you to strive for excitement. If you have love, it tells you to seek validation. If you are content, it calls you lazy. And so, you are led into a loop, a cycle of endless becoming, never being, of grasping for something undefined, shaped only by shadows in the mind. This illusion of better is not rooted in truth. It is rooted in fear. Fear of not being enough. Fear of being forgotten. Fear that stillness equals insignificance. The ego cannot rest because its identity is built on movement, on doing more, having more, becoming more. And so, it convinces you that peace must be postponed until you arrive somewhere else. But there is nowhere else to arrive. There is only here, dressed in the forms of now. The moment you trade this presence for some imagined version of better, you lose connection to the only thing that is real, what is. You abandon what is alive for what is imagined, and the cost is deeper than you realize. You begin to see your life not as a living expression of truth, but as a project to be fixed, a self to be upgraded, a soul to be marketed. This is how ego maintains control, by making you believe that the real you is never quite ready, never quite enough, that there's always a version of you, slightly improved, that is finally worthy of peace, rest, and love. And so you chase it, not because it fulfills you, but because it defines you. But the truth is, you are not incomplete. You are not unfinished in the way the ego suggests. Growth is natural, yes, change is inevitable. But the idea that you are only valuable once you've changed, that's illusion. That's ego's trick. That's how it keeps you blind to the treasure already within you. The illusion of better makes you forget how to be. It makes you forget the beauty of simplicity. It makes you overlook the quiet joy of a moment fully lived. It replaces the sacredness of your present with fantasies of a future where things are shinier, but never truly more fulfilling. It tells you that better is always there, never here. And if you believe it, you'll spend your life running toward a finish line that never arrives. Because the ego doesn't want completion. It wants continuation. It thrives in the chase, not the stillness. And in that chase, you forget your own wholeness. But there is another way, a quieter way. A way that doesn't demand you to improve, but invites you to remember. To remember that who you are beneath the ego is not in need of fixing. It is not a prototype. It is not lacking. It is not waiting for better. It is whole now, just buried beneath layers of noise. If you can see through the illusion, even for a moment, you'll begin to feel the peace that was always there. You'll begin to realize that nothing you chase outside of yourself will ever match the fullness that comes from simply being what you already are. The ego may still whisper. It may still seduce. But its voice loses power when you stop believing that better is somewhere else. Because sometimes the most radical act of strength is to sit down, breathe in the moment, and say to yourself not, I will be, but simply, I am. Yet we often treat authenticity like a performance, as if being real means ticking off boxes or matching an image of what real is supposed to look like. But the truth is, authenticity isn't something you wear on the outside, it's something you uncover from within. It is the quiet, often unseen commitment to stay rooted in what feels true to you, even when no one else understands it, even when it makes no noise, even when it doesn't look impressive. Especially then, the mind, driven by the desire to grasp, wants to define everything. It wants to turn the intangible into numbers and scores. It wants to say, this person is more real, or that one is not. But authenticity resists this instinct. It does not fit into categories. It does not ask to be proven. It simply is. Like breath, like wind, like silence, it flows in its own way, without needing approval. To be authentic is not to be perfect. It is not to be fearless or always certain. It is to be aligned to move, speak, and act from a place that is honest. Sometimes that honesty is soft, vulnerable, even uncertain. But it is still real. It doesn't need to convince anyone of its worth. It doesn't need to explain itself. It just needs to be lived. What confuses many is the idea that authenticity has a particular shape, that it must always be bold, or raw, or visible. But realness takes many forms. Sometimes it is quiet endurance. Sometimes it is joyful expression. Sometimes it is painful self-reflection. You cannot point to one and call it more true than the other, because authenticity is not about expression, it's about origin. Where it comes from matters more than how it looks, and because it lives at the origin of being, it cannot be faked. You can imitate the behaviors of someone who appears authentic, but if it doesn't arise from your center, it's only a reflection, not the source. True authenticity often feels risky because it means revealing who you are without defense, not who you want to be, not who you think others want to see, but the raw, unfinished, evolving self. That kind of honesty requires courage, not because it demands spectacle, but because it refuses to conform. And the world, in its hunger for predictability, often asks people to mold themselves, to edit their truth into something more palatable, to fit. But when you fit into something that isn't meant for you, you begin to lose contact with the essence of your own rhythm. And soon, you forget what your truth even sounded like. To return to authenticity, then, is not about becoming something. It is about unbecoming, peeling back the layers of performance, the masks, the stories you inherited, the roles you were told to play. It's about listening again to the voice that was always there beneath the noise, whispering not what you should be, but what you already are. And that's why it can't be measured, because there is no standard for the soul, no ruler for the heart, no scale for the weight of truth. What is real for one person may not look real to another, and that's exactly the point. Your authenticity is not meant to be replicated. It is meant to be honored. So the path is not to prove anything, but to feel into it, to sense when you're moving away from yourself, to notice when your words don't taste like your own truth, and gently, patiently return, again and again, not for applause, not for approval, but because anything else feels like a betrayal. There is nothing more natural than being what you are, and nothing more freeing than living without the burden of pretense. But this freedom comes not from the world recognizing you, it comes from you recognizing yourself, and allowing that recognition to guide your steps. No one else can measure that for you. No chart, no judgment, no outside scale. Only you will know when it feels right, when the inside and outside are finally in agreement, when what you say, what you feel, and what you do all move in unison. That is authenticity, and though it cannot be measured, it can be felt, and that feeling is unmistakable. Freedom begins where comparison ends. That simple truth hides in plain sight, quietly waiting to be understood, not with the mind alone, but with the whole being. For as long as one measures themselves against another, they are bound by invisible chains, chains forged not from iron, but from thought, from judgment, from illusion. Comparison is the subtle thief that slips in unnoticed. It pretends to be helpful, whispering, "Look how far you've come," or "You should be more like that." But underneath its voice lies unrest, discontent, and a sense of separation. It fractures the soul's unity by forcing it into competition with something it was never meant to compete with. You see a life, a path, a face, a moment, and the mind immediately translates it into a standard, as if there is one correct way to exist. The trouble is, comparison operates on the assumption that life is a race with a finish line, that everyone began in the same place, with the same tools, the same weather, and the same terrain. But life is not a race. It is a dance, and each soul is dancing to its own rhythm, shaped by currents too deep to be seen. To compare one rhythm to another is to miss the music entirely. Freedom is not the absence of challenges. It is the absence of self-judgment born from someone else's story. It is the moment you stop looking side to side and begin to feel the ground beneath your own feet. It is the deep exhale that comes when you finally realize you are not late, you are not behind, you are not too much or not enough. You are simply not meant to be anyone but yourself. And yet, comparison is so tempting because it offers a false sense of direction. It tells you where you should be by showing you where someone else is. But "should" is a heavy word. It drags you away from your own nature and into the image of another. You start shaping your choices to fit a mold that was never yours, and in doing so you drift, quietly but surely, away from your own center. Real freedom is found not in reaching the highest peak, but in realizing that there is no peak, only paths, each winding, climbing, spiraling in its own way, some through forests, some through fire, some through stillness, none more valid than the other, none superior, just different, just sacred. When comparison ends, space opens. A vast, silent space where your essence can stretch out without apology, where you can listen again, not to the noise of the world, but to the still voice within that knows what feels right, knows what calls you, knows when to wait, when to leap, when to rest. In that space, something ancient awakens, a knowing that cannot be taught, only remembered, a knowing that your journey is not a mistake or a deviation, but an unfolding, that the detours were part of it, that your timing is perfect, even if no one else understands it, especially then. You cannot walk freely if your steps are guided by someone else's footprints. You'll always feel out of rhythm, out of place, and the more you try to mimic, the more you forget your own stride. Comparison dulls your instinct. It clouds your clarity. It keeps you tangled in stories that do not belong to you. But when you step out of that fog, something shifts. You begin to trust, not blindly, but with a quiet certainty. You trust that your life has its own current, that you are being carried, not judged, that there is no scoreboard, no secret ranking, no eternal audience keeping track. Freedom, then, is not something you earn by outperforming others. It is something you reclaim the moment you stop pretending to be someone else. It begins when you say, "This is my pace, this is my season, this is my truth." And you walk with it not as a statement to the world, but as a gift to yourself. There is no peace in the mirror that reflects another's image. Peace lives in the still water that shows your own face clearly, without distortion, without noise, without comparison, just the pure, simple reflection of being. And from that reflection, the path reveals itself, not the best path, not the right path, but your path. And that is where freedom lies. When the weight of comparison is finally released, what remains is the raw and unfiltered experience of being. No longer pulled in 1,000 directions by imagined standards, you return to your natural state whole, unmeasured and free. The journey is no longer about proving, chasing, or matching anyone else. It becomes about honoring the path that is uniquely yours. In that sacred space where comparison ends, freedom begins, not loud or dramatic, but quiet and profound. And in that stillness, you remember, you were never meant to be like anyone else. You were only ever meant to be fully, deeply, and unapologetically yourself. There comes a time in life when you feel stuck, waiting, struggling, questioning why things aren't falling into place. You pray for blessings, but instead you face resistance. You ask for clarity, yet life becomes more confusing. But what if I told you that this is no accident, that what feels like hardship is actually preparation? God does not simply hand out great blessings, He prepares you for them. And that preparation comes through tests, harsh, undeniable, yet deeply transformative. These tests are not meant to break you, but to shape you, to strip away what no longer serves you, and to awaken the strength within you. Today, I want to share with you 3 of the most challenging tests God uses, not to punish you, but to prepare you for something greater than you can imagine. If you're going through these tests, it means your blessing is near, but you must recognize them, embrace them, and trust the process. Life moves at a pace beyond our control. We wake up with expectations, plans, and desires, believing that if we work hard enough, pray long enough, or persist with enough determination, things will unfold as we wish. But then we find ourselves waiting for the breakthrough, waiting for clarity, waiting for doors to open that seem forever shut. And in that waiting, doubt creeps in. We begin to question whether we've been forgotten, whether our prayers have gone unheard, whether we are wasting our time believing in something that may never come. But waiting is not just an empty pause. It is a divine test. God does not withhold blessings to torment you. He withholds them to strengthen you. He is teaching you patience, endurance, and unwavering faith in His timing. The human mind is restless, always seeking immediate gratification, but the soul understands something deeper. Growth happens in the stillness. In the silence of waiting, you are being prepared. You are being taught how to trust without evidence, how to hold on to faith when nothing in your reality gives you a reason to. And when the moment finally arrives, when the blessing is revealed, you will look back and understand every delay was necessary, every closed door was protection, every unanswered prayer was making room for something greater. But not all tests are quiet. Sometimes the preparation comes in the form of resistance, through struggle, through hardship, through moments that make you question your strength. We are taught to see obstacles as problems, as barriers to our happiness, but what if the struggle is part of the blessing? What if the very thing you are fighting against is the force shaping you into someone who can handle the gift you've been praying for? When life pushes against you, when everything seems to be falling apart, it is easy to believe that something is wrong, that you must have made a mistake, taken the wrong path, or that perhaps God has abandoned you. But the truth is, resistance is a sign of transformation. Think of fire refining gold, pressure forming diamonds, storms shaping the landscape. Nothing truly valuable is created without struggle. Every setback, every heartbreak, every failure is chiseling away the weaknesses, the doubts, the fears that would have held you back from receiving your blessing. The stronger the resistance, the greater the purpose. And yet, one of the hardest tests of all is when life strips away what you thought you couldn't live without. There are moments when God will take things from you, not as a punishment, but as a preparation. Perhaps you lose a relationship, a job, a sense of security. Perhaps you find yourself standing in the ruins of what you once built, wondering why it all had to fall apart. But what if you are being emptied so you can be filled with something greater? What if the loss is not an ending but a beginning? We hold on to things, to people, to identities that we believe define us. We cling to what is familiar because we fear the unknown. But growth requires detachment. It requires releasing what no longer serves you so you can step into something new. God knows what is ahead, and sometimes He must take things from your grasp because you would never let them go on your own. It is painful, but in that pain is an invitation, a chance to trust, to surrender, to believe that what is meant for you will never require you to beg for it to stay. And so, in the waiting, in the struggle, in the loss, there is a lesson, a preparation, a transformation. God does not give small blessings, and so He does not prepare you lightly. If you are going through these tests, take heart. It is not punishment, it is proof that something greater is coming. The blessing is not just in the outcome, it is in who you become through the process. And when it finally arrives, you will see the wait was worth it, the struggle had a purpose, and the loss was making space for something far beyond what you had imagined. Life has a way of testing us in ways we never expected. Just when we think we are making progress, just when we believe we are stepping into a season of peace, something pushes back. Challenges arise, setbacks appear, and obstacles seem to block every path forward. It is in these moments of resistance that we begin to question everything. We wonder if we are on the right path, if we are making the right choices, if perhaps we are not meant to reach the blessing we have been praying for. But what if I told you that this resistance is not a sign of failure, but of transformation? What if the very struggles you are facing are the tools God is using to shape you into the person who can handle the blessing that is coming? Nothing of true value comes without a process of refinement. Consider the way a tree must push against the wind to grow strong roots, how metal must endure intense heat to become pure, how muscles must tear and rebuild to grow stronger. The very nature of growth requires resistance. It is not an enemy but a teacher, forcing us to develop endurance, resilience, and faith that is not shaken by circumstances. God does not place resistance in your path to break you, but to build you. He is making sure that when the blessing arrives, you will not collapse under its weight. Many times we pray for something, but we are not yet ready to receive it. We ask for success, but have not yet developed the discipline to sustain it. We ask for love, but have not yet healed from past wounds. We ask for opportunity, but still carry fears that would cause us to run at the first sign of difficulty. So, what does God do? He allows resistance to come. He allows struggle to refine us. Because if we are not strengthened first, the very blessing we seek could become a burden instead of a gift. But in the moment, all we see is the difficulty. All we feel is the exhaustion. We wonder why every step forward seems to come with 2 steps back. We start to believe that maybe we are not meant to succeed, that maybe the dream we hold is not for us. But resistance is not rejection, it is a test. It is proof that you are being prepared for something bigger than you can currently handle. And if you can endure it, if you can push forward despite the struggle, you will come out stronger, wiser, and ready to receive what is meant for you. Let's see what is meant for you. The problem is that most people see resistance as a sign to give up. They believe that because things are difficult, they are on the wrong path. But what if the struggle is confirmation that you are closer than ever? What if the resistance is the final stage before breakthrough? Imagine an athlete training for a race. Every sprint, every push-up, every moment of exhaustion is making them faster, stronger, more capable. If they gave up because it was hard, they would never reach their full potential. The same is true in life. The blessing is coming, but only if you refuse to quit before you receive it, would cause us to run at the first sign of difficulty. So what does God do? He allows resistance to come. He allows struggle to refine us. Because if we are not strengthened first, the very blessing we seek could become a burden instead of a gift. But in the moment, all we see is the difficulty. All we feel is the exhaustion. We wonder why every step forward seems to come with 2 steps back. We start to believe that maybe we are not meant to succeed, that maybe the dream we hold is not for us. But resistance is not rejection, it is a test. It is proof that you are being prepared for something bigger than you can currently handle. And if you can endure it, if you can push forward despite the struggle, you will come out stronger, wiser, and ready to receive what is meant for you. The problem is that most people see resistance as a sign to give up. They believe that because things are difficult, they are on the wrong path. But what if the struggle is confirmation that you are closer than ever? What if the resistance is the final stage before breakthrough? Imagine an athlete training for a race. Every sprint, every push-up, every moment of exhaustion is making them faster, stronger, more capable. If they gave up because it was hard, they would never reach their full potential. The same is true in life. The blessing is coming, but only if you refuse to quit before you receive it. God allows resistance because He knows that without struggle we would remain weak. Without hardship we would never develop the strength to carry the weight of His blessings. Every time you push through, every time you refuse to quit, you are proving that you are ready. You are proving that you can be trusted with what is coming. And when the blessing arrives, you will not only appreciate it, you will be strong enough to hold on to it. So do not fear the resistance. Do not see it as a sign to give up. See it as the proof that you are being transformed, that you are being refined, that you are becoming the person God always intended you to be. The struggle is not the end of the road. It is the path that leads to your breakthrough. Keep going. You are closer than you think. There are moments in life when everything you once held onto begins to slip away. The things that made you feel secure, the relationships, the routines, the sense of stability, start to fade, and you find yourself standing in uncertainty, wondering why. You question if you did something wrong, if you made a mistake, if somehow you have fallen out of favor with God. But what if the loss is not a punishment, but a preparation? What if God is removing what no longer serves you so that you can step into something far greater? We often cling to what is familiar, not because it is best for us, but because it is comfortable. We hold on to relationships that no longer help us grow, jobs that keep us stagnant, mindsets that limit us. We convince ourselves that if we just try harder, if we just hold on a little longer, things will get better. But sometimes God's greatest act of love is not in giving us what we want, but in taking away what is holding us back. The problem is, when something is removed from our lives, we don't see it as a gift. We see it as a loss. We grieve, we fight. We try to put the broken pieces back together, not realizing that the very thing we are clinging to is the thing preventing us from receiving something better. Think about a tree in autumn. The leaves begin to fall, and from the outside it looks like the tree is losing something essential. But the tree does not resist. It does not try to hold on to its leaves, because it knows that in letting go, it is making space for new growth. It trusts the process. It understands that what looks like loss is actually renewal. In the same way, God sometimes removes things from your life because He knows that they are not meant to go with you into the next season. He knows that in order for you to grow, you must first be willing to let go. But letting go is painful. It is not easy to release what you once thought was permanent. It is not easy to watch a friendship fade, a dream shift, a chapter close. We resist change because we fear the unknown. We think that if we lose something, we will never find anything better. But God is not asking you to trust the loss. He is asking you to trust Him. He is asking you to believe that if He is taking something away, it is only because He is making room for something greater. Too often we pray for new blessings while still holding on to old burdens. We ask God for something greater, but we refuse to let go of what is familiar. But you cannot receive with closed hands. If you are clinging too tightly to the past, you will not be able to embrace the future. If you are still carrying the weight of what was, you will not have the strength to step into what could be. God is not trying to hurt you. He is trying to free you. He is stripping away what is no longer meant for you so that you can finally step into the fullness of His plan. So when something is removed from your life, do not see it as a loss. See it as an invitation to trust, an invitation to grow, an invitation to step into something far beyond what you could have imagined. You may not understand it now, you may not see the purpose in the moment, but one day you will look back and realize that everything you lost was actually leading you to something greater. God does not take without giving. He does not remove without replacing. And if He is asking you to let go, it is only because He is preparing to give you something even better. There comes a time in life when you feel completely alone. The people you once depended on seem distant. The places that once brought comfort now feel empty, and even the presence of God seems quiet. It is in these moments of isolation that you begin to wonder if you have been abandoned, if you are truly walking this path alone. But what if this solitude is not a sign of rejection, but a season of preparation? What if God is not punishing you, but pulling you aside because He wants to reveal something to you that can only be found in the silence? When everything around you goes quiet, you are left with yourself. No distractions, no outside voices, no false securities, just you and God. And that is exactly where transformation begins. In the moments of stillness, when there is no one else to turn to, you are forced to seek something deeper, something beyond what the world can offer. The truth is, we often rely too much on external validation. We want people to affirm our worth, to reassure us that we are on the right path, to walk with us so we don't feel alone. But sometimes God removes those voices so that we can finally hear His. He draws us into isolation not to harm us, but to teach us to depend on Him fully. Look at the greatest figures in history. Before they stepped into their purpose, they went through a season of solitude. Moses spent years in the wilderness before leading his people. Joseph was thrown into prison before stepping into his destiny. Even Jesus Himself spent 40 days in the desert alone before beginning His ministry. Why? Because isolation is where strength is built. It is where clarity is found. It is where faith is refined, no longer dependent on circumstances or the presence of others, but anchored in something unshakable. But isolation is uncomfortable. It feels unnatural to be alone. We crave connection. We seek companionship. We want to feel understood. So when God removes certain people from our lives, or closes doors we thought were meant to stay open, we resist. We try to hold on, to bring things back to the way they were, to fill the silence with distractions. But what if the very thing we are running from is the thing we need the most? The thing is as near to us, the thing we need the most. What if in the stillness God is trying to tell us something we have been too busy to hear? When you are alone, you learn who you truly are. There is no one to impress, no one to compare yourself to, no one to distract you from the questions deep inside your soul. It is in this space that God begins to show you things about yourself that you may have ignored. He reveals your fears, your doubts, your insecurities, not to shame you, but to heal you. Because before you can step into the blessings He has for you, you must first be willing to confront the parts of yourself that are not yet ready to receive them. So if you find yourself in a season of solitude, do not resist it. Do not see it as a punishment, but as an invitation to grow, to reflect, to strengthen your faith. This is not the end of your journey. It is the preparation for what comes next. And when the time is right, when you have learned what you need to learn, the doors will open, the people meant for you will return, and the path ahead will become clear. But for now, embrace the stillness, lean into the quiet, because in this space something sacred is happening. You are not alone. You are being prepared. At some point in life, you will reach a moment where you have done everything you can. You have prayed, you have planned, you have pushed forward with all your strength, and yet nothing seems to change. The breakthrough you were hoping for still hasn't come. The situation still feels heavy, and despite all your efforts, you feel stuck. It is in these moments that frustration begins to set in. You start questioning whether you are on the right path, whether God is even listening, whether you are wasting your time trying to hold on to faith. But what if this moment, the moment of exhaustion, of confusion, of feeling like you have nothing left to give, is not the end but the beginning? What if this is the final test, the last step before the blessing? The moment where God is asking you to do the one thing you have been resisting all along. Surrender. Surrender is not giving up. It is not admitting defeat. It is not walking away from everything you have worked for. Surrender is the highest form of trust. It is standing in the middle of uncertainty and saying, God, I don't understand, but I trust you anyway. I don't see the full picture, but I believe you are still in control. It is choosing to stop fighting against the current and instead allowing God to take you where you are meant to go. The truth is, we like to be in control. We like to know what's coming next, to have a plan, to feel like we have some say in how our lives unfold. And when things don't go according to our expectations, we panic. We scramble to fix things, to force outcomes, to make things happen in our own way and in our own time. But God does not work according to our timelines. He does not bless according to our plans. He moves in ways we cannot predict, and often the very thing we are holding on to so tightly is the thing preventing us from receiving what is meant for us. Think about a seed planted in the soil. It does not fight the darkness. It does not resist the process. It simply stays in the ground, trusting that in the right time it will break through and grow into something greater. But if that seed were dug up too soon, if it were removed from the soil before its time, it would never reach its full potential. In the same way, God is asking you to trust Him in the unseen, to surrender the need for immediate answers, to stop digging up what He is still working on. But surrender is hard. It requires letting go of control, of expectations, of the belief that we know what is best for our lives. It means releasing the timelines we have created in our minds, the way we thought things should happen, and instead stepping fully into faith. And faith is not just believing when things are easy. It is believing even when everything feels uncertain. It is knowing that even in the waiting, God is still working. Even in the silence, He is still speaking. Even in the delays, He is still on time. So, if you are tired, if you feel like you have done everything you can and still see no progress, maybe it's time to surrender. Not in defeat, but in trust. Maybe the blessing you are waiting for is already on its way, but God is waiting for you to let go of what is holding you back. Maybe the struggle is not because you are doing something wrong, but because you are still trying to control something that was never yours to control in the first place. Surrender is not the end of your journey. It is the beginning of something greater. It is the doorway to peace, to freedom, to the kind of blessings that can only come when you finally step aside and let God take over. And when you do, you will look back and realize that the moment you stopped fighting was the moment everything began to fall into place.